You're listening to Shields Up, a Star Trek podcast from More Trek Media.
You know the thing that will never die, though?
Mm-hmm.
Mirasta's power suit.
Mirasta's power suit? No.
Yeah, look at those shoulder pads.
No, that's some dynasty stuff going on right there, isn't it? Hello, welcome to Shields Up, a Star Trek podcast. My name's Chris, and with me, as always, is my co-host Neville. Today we are talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation, Series 4, Episode 15, First Contact. Neville, tell me about the episode. What you like, what you don't like, what you thought of the theme.
I don't like being called Neville, for a start.
Neville, okay.
Nev is fine, please.
Okay. Sorry.
Do you know, when I first saw this one, I must have been about 12 or 13. And I saw it on BBC Two, 6 o'clock. Got back from school and scarfed down my dinner and sat in front of the TV. And that's the first time I saw it, and that's the only time I have seen this episode since, until, of course, you suggested that this be the episode we cover this week. So I have quite fond memories of it, and I was quite looking forward to it, especially with the old Riker taking one for the team.
Yeah.
But this time I've obviously understood it a lot better, and it's the giant allegory that the episode is. So I'm looking forward to it very much. It was great fun watching this, and I'm really looking forward to talking about it.
That's good. It is a great episode. I remember seeing it the first time as well, with my dad, Wednesday evening, 6 o'clock, BBC Two. I must have been, I'm a little bit older than you, aren't I? So
Yes, you are, old man.
You are, old man. I must have been about, no, it must have been late, mustn't it? I must have been about 16 or 17 or so, because it was first released in the US in 91, but then it didn't start in the UK till a lot later, did it? So it must have been like...
I thought we were a couple, 3 years behind.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So I must have been about 16 or 17 then. But yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I can't remember when that was. But yeah, you're right. I really enjoyed this episode then, and I have watched it a few more times since, which is one last summer when I rewatched the whole of The Next Generation, and this one had stuck out to me quite a lot mainly because it hasn't got. Mainly because the main characters in this episode aren't our normal Star Trek heroes. They are.
It does show it from a different kind of perspective, and that's quite fun, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have like 4 main characters in this episode, which aren't regular people. You have Minister Yale, who's the doctor who's working on warp drive technology. You've got Darkin, the Chancellor of the Planetary Unified Government. You've got Crowler, who is the head of security, and then you also have Dr. Beryl, who is the man who is originally treating Riker for his injuries. And then obviously you've got a few other people. You've got Lilith from Friends coming in, and not Friends, from Cheers.
Yeah, I was wondering. Do you know that she was also, because I had to look her up because I know you said that she looks familiar, and she did look familiar to me as well. I was trying to pin her down. She is the hot high school principal in the faculty.
Well, there you go. Yeah, she is an attractive woman. I'll give her that.
She's not in this.
No, well, I mean, I think you're quite racist talking about their cranial ridges. You know, she plays a lady in this episode called Lanelle, and she's a bit of a freak, I think. That whole scene with her is a total departure from the theme and style and of the rest of the episode, because it seems like it's a lot more fun. It's like, oh, we've got this person who wants to be in Star Trek. Let's shoehorn this sort of comedic scene in. where she goes, "I'll help you escape, but you've got to do me." You know, and it's like, where did this come
I,
from? It's
I
weird.
think she says, "You have to make love to me."
Yeah, sorry, that's right. She does say it that way. I'm not known for my romantic tone of speech, you know.
She's a typical sort of groupie,
Mm,
and I think well, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because she gets what she wants,
hmm
to make love to an alien,
Yeah.
and Riker gets what he wants. So I don't see any problem with it. But the thing is, it is completely how to kill her
hmm
for the rest of the episode,
Yeah.
and it serves only to confirm what we knew about Riker
That He's
all along.
he's a proper shagger, a bit of a ladies' man. That is a weird scene, totally.
Yeah, it is strange, but I think it adds a bit of comic relief,
hmm
because I think a lot of this episode is is pretty much on the nose
hmm
for today's society, and this just gives us a little welcome break from that.
It does happen right in the bit where right in the middle of the episode where the tone of the episode changes from Picard tentatively stepping around first contact to then you have that situation with Linnell and Riker, and then afterwards it is all about how the feelings of the people on the planet change to, oh, they are spies, and they go to interrogate Riker and everything. So it's sort of like, oh, we do this scene and it breaks up the two styles of the episode as well.
Yeah, it serves as a nice intermission.
Mm. Yeah, that's just funny. It just makes me laugh. He just comes in there. Oh, my alien.
Now, now, will you help me? If you make love to me. What?
Yeah. What? I like it. Like it sort of cuts, and then she walks through the door, doesn't she? All sort of like, oh, yes. And they're like, all right, okay, wicked.
Bit of a shaky knee.
Yeah, that's right. I'll just. Oh no, man. Yeah, that's right. I was going to be incredibly rude then, but I'm not going to be.
You've already said shagger.
Yeah. There is some great lines in this, um, and great little speeches, and dialogue, especially pertaining to the Prime Directive. Which is, um, you don't interfere with a another species that isn't more capable. You just leave them alone. And like Durkin is talking to Picard about it, and he says, "I can infer from that directive that you do not intend to share all this exceptional technology with us." And Picard replies, "It is not the whole meaning, but is a part of the Prime Directive." And Durkin says, "Your way of maintaining superiority." And Picard's response is, "To instantly transform a civilization with technology would be harmful and destructive." And
I have that same quote written down right here on my
yeah,
notebook.
yeah, I know it's a good quote. It's a good quote. It means more to, I think, especially with how the Malcorians are
Hmm.
and their worldview, because they believe as a society that they are the supreme being and their planet and their world and way of life is the center of the universe. So when they're suddenly beamed up to the Enterprise and they realize that they're woefully inferior, it's a big shock to their worldview. And if that is like their entire civilization and culture, and what they're taught is that they are the greatest, it shows a lot of promise, or how Durkin is very open-minded, especially compared to Crowler.
The juxtaposition between Crowler and Marista is quite stark, and again, it's a bit on the nose. It's not subtle. When they're both there with the Chancellor, talking with him
hmm
about the potential for the first warp space flight,
hmm
or the first faster than light flight, I should say. It's just it's not subtle at all. You look at Crowler, and he's dressed in browns. They're almost priestly garments. He's
hmm
got this pair of glasses which are really thick. I mean, proper sort of NHS specs thick,
hmm
um, rims, and lenses. He looks like Milton out of Office Space,
Yeah.
and he's balding as well, and he keeps his hands clasped together in front of him, and he's very sort of conservative. Even his features, his mouth is permanently downturned. And then you move over to Marista, and she is the epitome of 90s power dressing woman with her big old shoulder pads, bright, almost a regal kind of a purple, her hair's slicked back, and her diction is really clipped. It's it's not subtle at all, but it provides a decent contrast to two very differing worldviews.
Yes. Yeah, it does. It handily lays it out there for us to see, whereas Marista is all very much, oh, when she says, the warp drive and it'll take us to this star, and he says, and then, well, what do we do? And she said, have a look around, you know, because that's she has, as she says, in the episodes that since she was 9, her parents used to take her to the planetarium, and she just wished she was out there. She's got all of this excitement about learning new stuff, whereas Crowler uses the phrase quite a lot. Is there are many people, to impress on the Chancellor and the other people in the government that he is thinking about the best for their people and their culture and the traditions. And I think,
A lot of people are telling me that my idea is the best.
mm,
Mm.
mm.
Oh no, I'm straying too much into politics now, aren't
But yeah, he
I?
says, like, there are many people that say that we're abandoning our heritage. There are many people that say, we're adopting technology, and now space flight and space travel scares them. And he's very much trapped in the past, and with the ideology of their culture, I think it is like, we are the supreme people. There's nothing out there. Why do we need to go? We've never done this before. Why should we change? We're successful, strong, proud people.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that the Chancellor refers to their planet as Malcor III when he's talking with Picard.
Yeah.
They would never call it that.
No,
I mean, they may be aware of other planets, but they'd never call yes, we're the third planet around Malcor. Yeah, I know that we're the third planet around the sun, but we don't call the Earth Sol 3, do we?
no. I always think that, for the fluff, that they're not speaking the same language. It's all through the universal translator. So where he is saying their name for the planet, what they call their planet, Malcor 3, it could just be Earth. But the universal translator is changing it to Malcor 3 for the benefit of Picard, because he knows it as Malcor 3.
Do you know there's a really good example of the way that's done? I watched Star Trek Beyond the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I whinge about Kelvin Timeline,
Mm-hmm.
but it popped up on Netflix, so I thought I'd give it a go.
Yeah,
And it was quite an
it's
run.
it's enjoyable. Yeah.
But you've got the second or first alien. What they meet this alien with these she's kind of a tentacle head,
Mm-hmm.
and when she speaks, she's speaking. I think it sounds like some sort of Slavic
Mm.
that she's speaking, but over her voice you hear a translation,
Mm-hmm.
and that's always kind of the way I imagine the universal translator to work. So I thought it was a really nice illustration of it.
Yeah, that is good actually. That's how I always thought it would be. So you'd hear the two things. So you'd hear the language underneath to the comm badge or other equipment or implants that the people have hearing it in their own language as well. Although
Exactly, yeah.
although how it works the other way around, it must be an ambient thing, like what the TARDIS does for you if you're a companion of the Doctor, why you can always understand people.
You have lost me there.
Right.
But
Okay.
I'm going to take your word for it.
So maybe it's like that with the computer in the room. They're on the Enterprise, and they said it works through the comm badge as well.
Hmm.
I think at some points to a little bit of hand wavium to get round to the whole fact that everybody speaks English.
Oh yeah, this is Star Trek. We love a bit of hand wavium.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Anyway,
It's
um,
it's also not
I
about the
digressed. Sorry.
yeah. It's also not about the technology either. Star Trek isn't, especially the Next Generation. It is about themes that are brought up in this episode, I think.
Yes, and the whole of the next gen is all about the story, and I think that that goes to show why it's, if not the most popular series, it's got to be at least the second.
What sci-fi?
In terms of just the Star Trek kind of canon.
The Next Generation has to be like the first or the second most popular.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be the original series. I assume that you're saying the other one.
I'd say the original. Well, you see, it's difficult. You see, I think I like next gen,
Hmm.
but then I look over to bearded Cisco, not pre-beard Cisco, but bearded Cisco,
Hmm.
and I go, well, actually, I'd like Deep Space Nine even more. And then I look at the original series and I go, well, we did Space Seed recently.
Hmm.
That just reminds me how much I love this series.
Yeah.
I can't decide.
No, Dominion War arc in DS9 was pretty good. But anyway, we're digressing because we're talking about the Malcorians.
Yes, we are.
Mm.
Back to the
Back to
Malcorians.
the Malcorians. I do like some of the conversations that Durkin and Picard have. Some of them are pretty good. You know, where Picard is trying to put him at ease. It's like my world's history has recorded that conquerors often arrived with the words, "We are your friends, and we are not here as conquerors, Chancellor. What do you want? A beginning? But how we proceed is entirely up to you." I like it. It's putting all of the onus on the continuing relationship and friendship that could be created on the Malcorians, and how the Federation are like, oh, what does he say after that? And if I should tell you to leave and never return to my world, Picard says, we will leave and never return. So it is, they're trying to impress on to them that they are the person driving the first contact.
Yeah, and I can see so many parallels with the Malcorians and how we would act. I mean, they
Hmm.
are just us by proxy, really, aren't they?
Mm. Yeah,
They sorry,
yeah, they are. No, I was agreeing with you.
I very much like the idea of the Malcorians as us because there is a great deal of variation
Hmm.
in them. You do have Crowler, who represents our conservative, more Luddite kind of side. You have Marista, who is our more progressive side, and then of course you've got the Chancellor in the middle, and it's like the original series. You've got that Holy Trinity there,
Hmm.
three different facets of the same personality,
Hmm.
and I think they portray it really well. You know, for a what is it, 50-minute episode,
Yeah,
and they managed to portray these three quite distinct aspects of the Malcorian society.
they do. And the other people in there as well from the Malcorian Society, you got Dr. Beryl, who's like, yeah, I think he's an alien, but he's also uh, injured, and they have a um, a similar thing to the Hippocratic Oath.
Hmm.
And he's like, I don't care what he is, I'm not going to do anything to harm him. But then you have one of his colleagues who says when they find out, you know, that he's not Malcorian or they don't really know what he is, he says that thing isn't even the same species,
Mm.
is what he says. So you also have good balance between how you got, because you've got the political stage up there, haven't you, with Minister and Durkin and Crowler. But then you've also got Joe on the street and how
Hmm.
normal people would react to this thing without having to worry about the political side of what they're doing.
Yeah, and we could also talk about the well, let's talk about the elephant in the room here, xenophobia,
Hmm.
the other,
Yeah.
and how um, someone who is different may end up in your country
Hmm.
and require some assistance. What do you do?
Hmm. Yeah, because the doctor is, he's a patient is his first and ongoing stance on that, and the other one is we shouldn't have anything to do with him. We should call in the security people straight away because he's bad.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, you're right. It is basic xenophobia, but then their whole society is that they are the supreme being, and these people, he's not one of us. He has to be a conqueror because it's the fear of the unknown, or the not the fear, the hatred. No, not hatred.
I don't think
It's
there's any hatred
no.
expressed in this episode. I think there is, I think you had it right first time. I think fear
Mm,
is the definite overriding feeling. I
mm,
mean, everywhere from the tense music
mm,
at the very beginning when they first bring in Riker,
mm.
all the way through to the actions of Crowler.
Yeah, it's fear of the unknown and the change, because Crowler brings up, the reforms that you're bringing in is too much too quickly. We need to slow down. We need to respect our culture, and that same thing would go down to the people on the street as well, won't it? You'll have some people who want to move forward and see what's out there and what we want to do, and then you'll have some people say, "Why change what we are now? Because we're good as we are."
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid too many analogies
Mm,
here,
me too.
but I think the current state of play in a certain two nations that we're quite familiar with, one close to home and one a little further across the water,
Mm,
I can quite easily imagine this situation playing out there
yes,
in either.
yes.
Whoops, I did it, didn't I?
What's that?
I talked about
No,
politics.
that's okay. We won't bring it up anymore. We
No,
won't
no,
bring it.
but I think it's there. It's important. I mean, it's an important. It was filmed in the 90s,
Hmm.
and those things were prevalent. We'd just come out of the Cold War.
Hmm.
Jeez, I keep referring to that into this series, don't
Well,
I?
it was a big thing. I'm sure a lot of the writers were taking real world ideas and putting them into the show, because when you're telling a story, you need it to be able to be relatable to.
Yeah. Well, let's just say that
Hmm.
the hospital where Riker is held, is in London,
Yeah.
and that Riker, instead of being a Federation officer, is a Russian in the Cold War.
Yeah, that's right. You would have people whose first and foremost thing is, well, I pledged an oath to do no harm and to help people, but then you'll have other people going, he's a Russian, he's here to sow discontent. Who knows what they've done? Crowler brings that up
Yeah,
in the episode as well. He says, like, they've been here years monitoring us. Who knows what they've done? What discord they've sowed, or what damage they've done to their society.
exactly. And if you replace differing levels of technology with differing governments,
Hmm.
and Riker is a Russian officer instead of a Federation officer,
Hmm.
I think you bung that in 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe even the 90s, and you've got a perfect recipe for creating fear.
Yeah, yeah, and they do this really well. This episode is really good at creating that and getting their point across. Unlike me.
Like us both sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's my rant over.
That's
I got
okay.
it off I got it off my chest.
Yeah, I do like the Federation's idea of the Prime Directive of of monitoring. He explains to the Doctor, when a society such as yours gets close to developing warp technologies, we like to meet on your turf, somewhere where you're comfortable, rather than an encounter in deep space, because who knows how that would go.
Well, he explains how that went with the Klingons.
Exactly, that happened with the when the Vulcans first met the Klingons as well. The Klingons just destroyed the Vulcan ship.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm. Yeah, so the Klingons' first rule is to shoot, isn't it? So who knows where this planet is based in relation to the Federation? Because at the end, when Marista joined, hitches a lift on the Enterprise because she won't be able to stay, and even Durkin is like, she won't be happy with the restrictions I must place on her. And he's all willing for her to go because she'd be unhappy, and he is a caring person who tries to do the best for everybody. And Picard says, we don't know if we're ever coming back this way. Will it be in your lifetime?
But unfortunately, they did. It was almost like they planted an agent on the Enterprise themselves, wasn't it? By taking on Marista,
Hmm.
because she later comes back as Commander Torres of the Romulan Empire.
Oh, does she? I didn't know that.
The Star Trek franchises in general have got a great um, they've got a great way of reusing actors
Hmm.
in differing parts, and she played Commander Torres of the Romulan Empire, who was a pretty tough nut to crack. I mean, there's things like Jeffrey, I can't remember his surname, but the guy who plays Wayoon in
Oh
Deep
yeah,
Space Nine,
yeah.
he's played loads of parts.
Oh, has he? Yeah, I'm just looking on Memory Alpha. I love that website. But she plays. Yeah, the lady who played Marista in this episode played Sub Commander Taris, Marista,
Hmm.
Commander Toreth, and she was in an episode of a couple of episodes of Voyager as well.
Yes, yes, she was. Yeah. So there's I think it's a great thing that they do, and they do it across the franchise. Is just keep reusing the same actors, because once you've
Hmm.
found someone who's tried and proven and works in universe, then there's all reason to go back to them. It just struck me that she's this idealistic rocket scientist working to progress her society's future, her planet's future, and then suddenly she's commanding a warbird and opening gun ports on the Enterprise.
That's quite funny. Yeah, maybe it's the same character. Maybe it's like a whole Tasha Yar thing.
Yeah, how things change.
How things change. That's right.
So yeah, I just wanted to take a minute just to talk about Mirasta's visit to the Enterprise. So first of all, they take her to 10 Forward, which I think would be a great place to get started because you've got so many species there.
Hmm.
But instead of dwelling on those, she goes straight over to the viewing windows and just gets to see her planet for the very first time
Hmm.
through those windows. And the very first thought that I had when I saw her doing that, because I'd love to experience that.
Yeah.
That would be incredible. I don't think I ever will. I think we've been born just a bit too early for that to happen to us.
Hmm.
But what she's experiencing there is called the overview effect,
Okay.
um, and I think Michael Collins summed it up the best. Michael Collins, who was on Apollo 11
Hmm.
with Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, he says he said at the time when he returned, the thing that really surprised me was that it projected an air of fragility. And why? I don't know. I don't know to this day. I had a feeling it's tiny, it's shiny, it's beautiful, it's home, and it's fragile. The overview effect has the effect on people of just removing all borders and conflicts, and you just get to see that beautiful, as Carl Sagan called it, beautiful blue marble before you, and it's supposed to be awe-inspiring. And I know I'll never see it myself, like I said, but I've got a feeling that's what they were trying to convey that she was feeling at the time.
Yeah, because they walk in, don't they? And there's like the blue guy sitting there having a drink, and there's other people standing around. And you're right, she just totally ignores them just to look out the window at her home.
Yeah, it just puts everything into perspective for
Mhm.
her, which is, I imagine, how anyone looking out of the cupola on the International Space Station feels.
Yeah. Yeah, this is such a big world, but so tiny when you're up that high.
Yeah, it's amazing. You don't see any national borders
No.
or anything like that. It's just that's home.
Mm. It would be lovely to see that. It'd be wonderful to see that.
It'd be incredible, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but you're right. I think we're probably born about 20 years too early.
Unfortunately, but maybe your little girl will get to go.
Maybe.
She'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, perhaps. So, and like you were saying, that feeling of home, I think that a lot of the people in this episode, like Crowler or Dr. Nilrem, who is the doctor that says the line, "That thing isn't even the same species as us," I don't think they'd be struck by the wonder of seeing their planet. More like, this is our place and we must protect it.
That insular kind of view, you mean?
Yeah, that's it. This is ours, and we've got to protect it from you people. Because that attitude comes along, where after Crowler tries to martyr himself with
Yes.
to make sure that they don't go down the path of space travel and get the word out there that these people have come and they are bad people because they're not us. When he's alive and well because he didn't realise that the phase was set on stun, and he said, "What is this place?" They go, "You're on their ship," and he's like, "No, no, we can't be here. You can't do this." And he's still, even though, like, in the face of it, that his plan to derail this whole thing has gone wrong in his eyes, he's still 100% against any change to his worldview of him
Yeah.
being of Starfleet and the Federation being evil conquerors.
It's all about. It's not just about power, but it's about the status quo.
Mhm.
And he's happy with his life as he is, as he has it, and he's concerned with tradition and so on, and all this progress, this new fanangled stuff,
Mhm.
is disturbing. It's again what we were talking about earlier, the fear of the unknown, and even if it's there, right, staring him right in the face, as it is when he looks up at the ceiling
Mhm.
and realizes he's somewhere entirely different,
Yeah.
that he still can't accept it,
No.
even though intellectually he can, but morally he can't. He's a zealot in the sense that, well, he just tried to martyr himself, and I think the way they use the word martyr,
Mhm.
and so he is a zealot as a result of that.
Mhm. Yeah, and even after he tried to martyr himself and the phaser was only set on stun, he still begs the Chancellor to say, "Don't trust them. They'll be bad for us. It's all going to go wrong. It's all going to go wrong."
I do like when they, just as an aside,
Mhm.
I digress again. Just as an aside, when they first, when Beryl, the Doctor Beryl,
Mhm.
when Doctor Beryl talks about the phaser and shows it to Riker, he says, "Oh, it's just a toy." Um, when he leaves the room, one of the other guys picks it up and does a Luke Skywalker with it and stares straight down the barrel.
Does he? That's really funny. Oh, what's that? But I
That's
guess
what.
you would if you didn't realise it was a weapon. Oh, what's this?
Well, yeah, exactly. So
Mm.
he just goes and I don't have to explain.
No,
You
no.
you all know about Luke Skywalker when he first picks up a lightsaber.
He looks at it. Oh, what's that in there? Is that some sort of glowy crystal? What happens if I press this button?
That would have been a very short trilogy.
That would have been. That would have been all the Emperor's best laid plans.
Anyway, so Crowler Crowler is a zealot, and
Hmm.
he is like I referred to Luddites earlier. For those who are not familiar with Luddites, they were around in the early 1800s,
Hmm.
and they worked in the textile mills in England. I think they were more towards the sort of the northeast kind of area, and they objected to the introduction of machinery, looms, mechanical looms, and automation, and so they went and sabotaged these all because they were afraid of the progress and how it would um, put them all out of jobs, take away their livelihoods, and so on. And so, if you hear anyone refer to someone as a Luddite, which Crowler definitely is,
Hmm.
even though intellectually he is aware of the progress.
I like how this whole thing of Durkin trying his best to um, believe everything is going to be okay with the Federation, and he is obviously trying to bring his society out of the ideology that they have, and move them forward and see what his people can achieve while given free rein to be able to do the things they achieve. I think earlier in the episode when he's talking to Jean-Luc Picard, he says, "I go home each night to a loving wife and two beautiful daughters. We eat the evening meal together as a family. I think that's important, and they always ask me if I've had a good day." And Picard says, "How will you answer them tonight, Chancellor?" And he says, "I will have to say, this morning I was the leader of the universe as I know it. This afternoon I'm only a voice in a chorus, but I think it was a good day." So he is well up for leading his people into this new world, which he said, he said himself, "I was the leader of the universe as I know it, and this afternoon I'm only a voice in a chorus."
Yeah,
After,
I think that sums him up extremely well, and that's a
Mhm.
great choice of quote.
Yes, yeah, and after he finds out that the Federation have been there for a while, and monitoring them, he is angry, obviously, because it's their worldview. But there is another part where it shows how he is fighting against his, I was going to say, indoctrination of his ideology, but it's not really. Picard says, "I hope that we had found Commander Riker before you did, so this matter would not complicate your introduction. It was a mistake." And Durkin says, "Yes, a mistake I might have made in your place. I rather like it, actually." And Picard goes, "Like it?" And Durkin says that you make mistakes, like any man, knowing them
Hmm.
that they're not all powerful, or there's really not much to fear from having a relationship with the Federation. But because of how events unfolded in the hospital, with Riker getting a beating and the interrogation and all the stuff where Crowler tried to martyr himself, that he has to stop the first contact and delay the development of the warp technology in order
Yeah,
to prepare the people in regards to the society and culture. He says, like social reforms and education, so that we can move forward and it won't be so bad as what
I think
happened with Riker.
my take on it that Chancellor Durkin was less annoyed about the idea of having Federation observers on the planet and more about the idea that Marista didn't trust him with that information. I think he was perfectly open to the idea of Federation observers whilst keeping them under control, keeping a close eye on them. But it was that lack of trust engendered by Marista that really irked him.
Hmm. Picard is in a difficult position in regards to that because he doesn't know anything that much about the Malcorian culture and people, only what he would have read in reports from the observers. So when Marista said that you're going to have massive issues if people find out that people have been here for a while, so he took Marista's advice, didn't tell Durkin, and then it blows up a bit in his face after they've captured Riker. I think that if Picard had approached the situation with Durkin, like he does at the after at Durkin's office, saying that when Starfleet first met the Klingons, the first contact was disastrous and decades of war resulted. The Federation decided that surveillance of that nature was necessary. You know, just monitoring or just looking out and learning about the culture. I think that it wouldn't have been a big of an issue, and there wouldn't have been the breaking of trust if Picard had told him that, yeah, because you're about to launch your first warp ship, we've got people here, and this one man has been injured and he's missing, and we need to find him. I think that
Yeah.
probably would have played out a little bit better.
I think the question to ask would be, had Riker not been captured, would things have gone any differently? What do you think?
Well, they do say at the beginning that they've stepped up their first contact protocol a little bit because Riker's gone missing. Because Riker was originally there to liaise with the surveillance teams, and that was the Enterprise's mission there, to find out what was going on. They said that the first warp engine would be ready in about 10 months or something, so they're not even close to launching a ship. It's not like it was something over the next, couple of months or anything. And it just unfortunate that Riker got caught up in that riot, so they had to bring first contact forward.
Yeah. So
Because
do you think it would have transpired the same way? Do you think that the Chancellor would have made this same decision that he did at the end of the episode?
no, he wouldn't have, because at the beginning of the episode he's saying that they're going to go ahead with the engine testing, and once the ship is built and ready to go, and if that's when Federation make the official first contact, it will be too late for him to stop it, I think, at that point, because the ship will be there and it will be ready to go. Because that would be incredibly suspicious if, oh, this ship is ready to go, we're not doing it now, all of a sudden, for no reason. What that would create more conspiracy theories and unrest than it does now, because Durkin is pushing through reforms like Crowler is warning him against. We're led to believe that Crowler is a zealot, as you said earlier, but he's concerned that the societal changes that Durkin is pushing through are happening too quickly. We need to stop and take a breath. We need to consolidate what we've got up to this point and then move forward. Because he says, like, yeah, we'll go ahead with the building of the engine, and then after that, we'll take a breath, rethink everything, and then move on from there. If Riker hadn't have been injured or captured, and this whole episode hadn't played out, it'd be 10 months down the line. The prototype would have been built, and I think Durkin would have still pushed on with building the ship and sending the mission out.
I think he would as well.
Hmm.
He would have progressed with the building of the ship, with the testing of it,
Hmm.
but I still think the ultimate end result would have been the same, in the sense that the Federation would have introduced themselves, much in the same way as the Vulcans did
Hmm.
in Star Trek First Contact of the film.
Hmm.
It would have freaked out people like Crowler, who seem to have a very, very firm grip on a large portion of society, and they would have withdrawn to do their own thing for some time.
Yeah.
So I think that the progress of the ship would have gone quicker, but the overall result would have been the same as a
Mm.
result of the more conservative portions of society.
Yeah, that's right. Although with this particular society, I think rather than it being a couple of years that it's been postponed, we're probably talking a couple of generations of being held back.
One would hope not, but again, it's going to be down to their society itself.
Hmm.
And remember that Crowler won't be around forever.
No,
Mind you, we don't know how long these guys live.
no, that's very true. And the Durkin isn't going to be around together. Who knows that the next people that come in are unhappy with the societal changes and the speed that technology and new ideas and philosophies are being introduced, and people want a more back to basics regime for a while.
Hmm. You know the thing that will never die, though?
Hmm.
Mirasta's power suit.
Rasta's power suit? No.
Yeah, look at those shoulder pads.
No, that's some dynasty stuff going on right there, isn't it?
What? I want big hair. That's the only thing she was missing, was big hair.
There was, yeah, like a backcombed, looking like the singer from Starship.
Well, it was slicked back. It just wasn't. There just wasn't enough of it to do what needed to be done.
No, no, with the view. You're an idiot.
Yes, I am.
I thank you. It does. It's funny.
I'm really good at derailing you,
Yeah,
aren't
you are. You are. No, I just. There's another thing that I've recognised about Star Trek as well. It's funny how all of these different cultures and everything all seem to have the similar sort of dress, don't they? It's like what the Malcorians are wearing is pretty much what like non-Starfleet people wear.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, it's funny how yeah, it's like that whole thing with that elder race that seeded the galaxy. Everyone looks humanoid. Has everyone seems to have evolved in the same way with the same tastes.
Well, speaking of, I think this is evidence that the TNG is set in the future and that coronavirus is never going to leave us because, after all, one of the well-known effects of the coronavirus is the loss of taste.
There's yeah, yeah. Although those Starfleet
You can't deny it.
no outside of the Starfleet uniforms, which are very functional, you know, I bet you could just pee right in them, you know, and it gets all absorbed back in there as drinking water, like the Fremen on Arrakis in the Dune series.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, I said they could be like that, but everybody else outside, they all seem to be dressed the same regardless of the climate. You know, you're right. There's no
Yes.
taste. It's coronavirus hasn't been eradicated. We've just nobody's nobody's. Luckily, there's no more fatalities, but everyone's lost their sense of taste.
it was. It just seemed natural to flow the conversation
Well, of
that way.
course, of course.
I don't even know where we were in the
No,
conversation.
neither do I. A lot of these people, you were talking earlier about how a lot of people were in the different episodes of Star Trek. A guy who played
Yeah.
Crowler also played the Romulan.
Did he?
Yeah, and you're talking about severe shoulder pads.
He does. Well, I thought you were going to talk about his facial features because they're pretty severe as well. I know they're done up in the makeup, but
Yeah,
if you look at his jaw is dead straight, and he's got big old cheekbones on him, hasn't he?
I said Romulan, but he was actually played a Vulcan. Now I feel bad.
Racist.
Racist. Oh,
They all look the same.
it's weird. That guy, he was in. He's played one character in Next Generation, one in DS9, one in Voyager, and one in Enterprise.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Well, I think that just goes to prove what I said earlier.
yeah, that's it. It's like, oh, we need somebody who's available. Oh, this guy, he's been in here before. He knows his way around the set, around the studio. We'll just get him in.
I think it worked when you've got someone who knows the deal
Mm,
and has proven their worth. Why not? Why would you go to someone else
well, yeah.
unless you wanted something truly different or wanted to get some fresh blood in?
Yeah, although I do like the guy who plays Crowler, and how he plays Crowler is very good. He plays the angry zealot conservative that he is, doesn't he?
I think Crowler genuinely cares and loves his home,
Hmm.
his world, his society, in the same way that the Chancellor presumably does as well, in the same way that Marista does. It's that they care and love their home in a different way.
Hmm.
And it's the same as the political parties now. It's the same for activists and so on. Everyone, people care and have their passions, but much as with our society, there are differing opinions,
Hmm.
differing views, which is healthy,
Hmm.
of course. Although when it comes to zealotry, not so much.
No, no, without the ability to change, then you're just gonna be stuck, and
Yes.
it will get worse for everybody involved because any sort of progressiveness will be stamped on, and then you'll have more and more restrictions placed on you.
Yeah, have your passions, have your beliefs, have your principles, but be prepared to have them challenged and be prepared to say, okay, you're right. We can compromise on this.
Yeah,
I sound so pious.
you do sound really pious. Crowler doesn't seem like the person who would be willing to compromise, though. Durkin is very much a man who is willing to compromise, of saying, this is how we are, this is our traditions, this is our culture. However, we do need, as a people, to move forward. And this episode is played out between, you've got Marissa's need to go forward with the next thing. We need to do this, this is the next thing, it drives her, the need to change and learn. Whereas Crowler's has the same need to honour the traditions.
Yes.
Keep it how it was. Do the we do get new technology, but we adopt it slowly and cautiously into our way of life, so it doesn't change who we are fundamentally. And his zealotry probably come out of the fact that his worldview was totally demolished because of the Federation rocking up, that it made him take more drastic actions than he would ordinarily. The fact that he says that he's willing to die to defend his way of life, after he says that after he finds out about the Federation having operatives on the planet, and then tries to martyr himself. That's somebody who is unwilling to change. I think like, even if at the beginning of the episode where Durkin says, no, we'll go ahead with this thing and then we'll take a breath, I don't think he would be happy if Durkin had cancelled the warp drive project there and then, because he says we've already had too many new ideas and technology introduced. I think he would be happy if everything stayed the same until the day he died, from where it is, because too much has already changed.
Yeah, we could easily make historical analogies. There's the Luddites that I mentioned earlier. There was the advent of television, which brought about similar concerns. Home computers, the internet, the space programs, including the SN9, which is going up tonight for the first time, hopefully, fingers crossed. There's plenty of people who object to that, and there always will be. And again, it's healthy to have dissenting opinions, just not when you take them that far.
Exactly, and obviously this is a story meant to highlight the extreme ends of these two philosophies.
Yeah.
But there would be people now, if we were in a position where we're saying like, oh, there's this new science project, and like Elon Musk goes, yeah, I've developed this faster than light space drive, and our first test is going to be to Mars and back, and it's going to take about 2 hours or whatever it is. There would be plenty of people who would oppose that. As many people who are fervently for it, there would be as many people who are fervently and perhaps aggressively, violently opposed to it. I mean, do you remember the film Contact with Jodie Foster?
Yes.
They were in that bit. There was a group of zealots who blew up the gate, the first gate they did, because they shouldn't be messing around with stuff like that. That's extremism on that level. I could see that happening if that technology was available, or a warp drive technology was available now to us.
So Contact by Carl Sagan, I do recall reading somewhere, I don't recall exactly where, but I do recall reading that that was his allegory for CERN.
Oh, really?
And the concerns about CERN producing a black hole and so on.
Oh, yeah, there was lots about that, wasn't there? Kind of like the Y2K thing. People don't understand, people are scared. I remember where I was working at the time, some guy was absolutely terrified of Y2K, and I said, well, it's not going to affect anything, because it won't. I mean, like, the whole thing was predicated on technology. It had already been surpassed and changed, because it was all about how the date was written in processors.
Yeah, how they were concerned that it would, once 2000 ticked over, it would go back to 1900,
Yeah, because
and then
because it was only because what the Y2K thing was based on was older chips which only had 2 bits for the date, so it was only 2 numbers, whereas they were
yeah,
already superseded. So they were like, people were scared that planes would drop out of the sky, or nuclear power plants would explode. This one guy, I remember saying to him, what are you scared of? Like, what, your blender is going to come alive and explode or something? He goes, you never know, it could happen. I was like, okay, mate. That's, how would that happen? Because
I do like my blender.
yeah, I know. What, is it going to become self-aware and terminate you? Is it like the rise of Skynet because it's all the technology? But like, it was that fear of the unknown.
I'm not sure, but my coffee grinder was looking at me a bit funny.
Yeah, I've got a Tassimo. That always looks at me funny.
Oh, I think you're in more danger than I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea how these work. I used to be an engineer, I work in IT now, but I don't know how they work, because depending on which pod you put in, will do something different. So like, if I put a latte in, you put your milk pod in, and then you put your coffee pod in afterwards, but it steams the milk.
Do you know, it's probably something mechanical, because I went to fill up the other day.
Mm.
My car's a diesel, and it was about 7 in the morning. I sort of staggered out to the car, drove along, and pulled up at the gas station, and went to fill up, and the nozzle wouldn't go in the car.
Oh.
And then I looked down, and it's a green one instead of a black one.
Yeah,
And
that was lucky.
well, I think there must be some shape or mechanical element to it that stops it from going in. And I'm glad for that,
Yeah.
because otherwise I would have had a very expensive, very annoying day.
Yeah, just sit there on the forecourt crying about your car.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that would have been
Because
me.
I think
So,
if that happened to me, if I put petrol in my car, which is also a diesel, I don't think I'd be able to do anything but just sit on the floor and cry after, just because of, after like the few things I've had go on with it. But I think I would place all of the problems and issues and worries that I've had over the last couple of years on me putting petrol in my diesel car, and I think that would be the breaking point. That'd be it for me, I think.
the straw that broke the camel's back.
That's right. Yeah.
I can feel you on that one, because it probably would have been exactly the same as me.
Yeah. But this is it. This is it. This is my life now. I'm just putting petrol in the car.
This is my life.
I'm just
now.
gonna. That's it. I'm not moving from there. I'm gonna live on the forecourt of this petrol station. My car is gonna be there, and I'm just gonna sit here and cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be it. That'd be it.
Well, look, if ever it happens to either of us, just you call me first, and I'll call you first, and
Yeah.
we'll be able to work it out together.
Yeah.
Talk me off the edge.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and all of these worries about technology could be the same as what they're portraying in this episode of things we don't really understand, and what's that going to do for us.
Cool. Okay, so Chris, favorite character in this episode?
I really like Durkin. He is measured, trying to do the best for his people, keeping Marista in check, and also, to a point, Crowler, because none of the crew of the Enterprise really did anything this episode. I mean, Worf was in it, but he never even had a line.
He just walked up and escorted the Durkin to the transport.
Yeah, and then he picked up the phaser, which was like loaned by Riker. Crusher was in it for a bit, just doing their job. Picard's diplomacy is really good in this, and how he explains things, and you can understand why somebody like that would be, like somebody like Picard, would be prime material for First Contact, because of his empathy and understanding, and just the fact that he's cool as, he's willing to make mistakes, or willing to admit to the mistakes that he's made, in the language of diplomacy that people will understand, and he is very very clear when he speaks. When he first meets Durkin, and he said, I've been waiting to open this, and it's a bottle of wine that his brother's made. And he said, we have a fruit on our planet called a grape, and we make wine. So he's really emphasizing how it's made, or what it is made out of, while he's just chatting to the guy. Did you notice that?
I think in this episode, Picard just really shows himself as a man of class, a diplomat,
Yeah.
and a man of principle as well. And I think that his interactions with Durkin and with Marista, to start out with, just solidify my thoughts on that.
Well, it's really hard to choose between who the best character in there, because each of the three people from the Malcorians, Marista, Durkin, and Crowler, are played really well, and they are very well defined characters, and they stick to them. So you have a progressive, and you have a conservative, and then you have the liberal in the middle, who tries to temper the passions of each side.
Yeah, the Holy Trinity that I referred to earlier there is portrayed really well by those three characters. And to be honest, while I am probably more in line myself in the way that I act with Durkin, I love the optimism of Marista. Because, well, you've heard me bang on about SpaceX and Blue Origin and all this exciting stuff in space, and you heard me talk about the overview effect and how I would love to experience that. So I think my heart is where Marista is, in the sense that I love the optimism, and Star Trek fills me with that, and so she exemplifies that part of me really well, and I can really relate to her, the discovery, the unknown, the just finding out new things and living out her dreams, which is something I'd like to do. I would like to add a special note for Linnell, though.
Yeah.
Riker's bit on the side.
Yeah.
I think she's well worth a mention, but only because I haven't met a woman like that, and I am single and desperate.
Nev needs a girlfriend.
Actually, no, I don't need a girlfriend given my history.
No.
I still want one.
What you want to do is find an alien that wants to make love to another alien. This is what I've always dreamed of. You're like, okay, that's a very niche kink, I think, isn't it?
It is somewhat niche, but everyone's got their things. Don't kink shame. Look,
I'm not kink shaming. I'm not kink shaming.
A bit more human. I'll take a three-titted Martian.
Well, and to be fair, Riker is a manly man, isn't he?
He is a manly man. And that's my thought.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure.
That's all right. I think we should call it a day there.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you very much for listening to Shields Up, a Star Trek podcast. With me has been Chris.
Hello.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you as well for your fantastic choice of episode. I'm so glad we revisited this one. Why have I not gone back to see this before? Next time, we'll be talking about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1, Episode 25. We're looking at an earlier one. This is my choice, Conspiracy. So, we'll see you then.